All right, welcome to the Shadow of the Apple, episode 9. Uh, I'm Ryan. This is Dylan, and I think we have probably the most interesting and fun one yet, because it's the Subway Series, the Yankees versus the Mets. So we'll get into that. First, we're going to recap the past series these two teams have played. Um, the Yankees just came off a three game series in Baltimore where they got swept. So that's not fun. That's
Really?
not
They
true.
got
They didn't get
they got
no,
swept?
they didn't get swept. I don't know what I'm yapping about. 2 out of 3. They won 2 out of 3. I don't know. I'm I'm a downer right now. I just completely forgot. We had an off day. I've been all over the place. Took 2 out of 3. Yeah. Um. So in the first game of this series, Ryan Weathers had a phenomenal start. He took a no hitter into the seventh inning, but then he allowed two base runners, and then once the bullpen came in, Brendan Hedrick ended up giving up a 3-run home run that allowed the Orioles to take a 3-2 lead, and they didn't look back after that. In the second game, which the Yankees did win, sorry again, Paul Goldschmidt hit a home run on the first pitch. He led off, hit a home run on the first pitch. In the series in Milwaukee, I believe it was, he became the oldest Yankee to ever hit a leadoff home run, and he broke his own record a week later by becoming the oldest Yankee to hit a leadoff home run in the game. So that was pretty interesting. The Yankees won that game. Game two, like I just said. Game three, they lost 7-0. Kyle Bradish started for the Orioles. So I give him a shout out. He was disgusting. His curveball was unhittable, it seemed. He had 5 strikeouts on that pitch alone against the Yankees. And they historically have hit this guy well, too. 3.92 ERA in his first 8 starts against the Yankees in his career. So it was a little weird to see, but he just was very sharp. They only had one hit the whole game, a double by Jazz Chisholm in the fifth inning. Only 5 walks, two by Grisham, two by Spencer Jones. And probably the biggest storyline of that game and out of the series for the Yankees was Max Fried was removed from that game. He only pitched 3 innings. He left with an injury. At first, it seemed like it could have been a blister. He had that last year, but it ended up being he had left elbow soreness. That's never good. You never want that. Um, a lot of people immediately expected the worst, uh, but we found out maybe an hour ago that it's only a bone bruise. And according to him and the doctors, it looks like he's not going to need surgery. But for now, he is on the injured list, and he will miss some time. But it's obviously much better than the worst case scenario, what everyone immediately thought of.
So let me just ask you this: why do you
Mm-hmm.
think the Yankees struggled in this series against Baltimore compared to series previously this year where they succeeded and were had no problem against the Orioles?
Yeah, they just played them at home and swept them in a 4 game series. And now they just took only one of these 3 games. So it's interesting. Um, I think they're just going through a rough stretch. I mean, all teams go through bad stretches. The Yankees are doing it with injuries too. Um, Obviously, Stanton, and then Dominguez, now Spencer Jones, like the third string DH they have. Uh, you know, Caballero is out too right now. Of course, Max Fried is now out, but that didn't affect that game because he couldn't pitch. But yeah, I think it's just a rough stretch they're going through. I don't think it's anything too crazy to worry about. I think they'll be fine. They're not. They still haven't reclaimed first place in the AL East, so that's something to watch. But I don't think that'll be a long term issue. Hopefully, I still personally feel like, as of now, our biggest threat in the AL East is the Blue Jays. Once they get all their players back and get hot, I feel like that'll be a race towards September, the Yankees and the Blue Jays. But we'll see. Can't just discredit the Rays yet.
Interesting. So, I mean, is there anything that has stood out with this stretch? The Yankees now have they've lost now what 5 out of 6, or
Yeah, they
yeah, 5 out.
lost. Yeah, 5 of their last 6. It's Yeah. I mean, it just the offense really is not hitting well. The bullpen we knew was an issue coming into the season, so it's just now we see it on the field that it's an issue. But the offense isn't really helping. Um, like I said in the last episode, so far this year the offense has scored enough runs by a lot in most
Yeah,
games.
we
But
did all of that.
of course, now that they're going through a stretch, it shows the weaknesses of the pitching. But also, yeah, with the Yankees offense, I mean, like I said, they only had one hit in that third game. So, of course, that was a double by Jazz, which Jazz and Austin Wells are two guys that I was going to mention specifically by name because, even when everyone else was hot and they were scoring 5, 6, 7 runs for the first month of the year, Jazz and Wells haven't really got going yet. So those are two guys you want to see get hot if they want to start winning games again.
All right. And then it sucks to see because you have Yankees. I mean, it's a long season, so every team's not going to be perfect or have their stretches. But then to add insult to injury, with Max Free getting hurt right before.
Yeah.
I mean, he's a player who's got injury issues in the past, so it's definitely something that I guess isn't too unexpected. But I do think the Yankees will be fine in the long run just because of their depth when it comes to pitching.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I'm pretty sure Elmer Rodriguez is going to come up for the time being until Garrett Cole comes back. But the timing sucks too. I mean, Carlos Rodon just came back. He made his first start of the year just to Max Fried's next start for Fried to get hurt. And then I think Cole has like 1 or 2 rehab starts left. So it's poor timing. We're going to have to wait a little bit longer to see all 3 of those guys in rotation together. But, definitely look on the positive side. When you hear left elbow soreness, pitching arm elbow soreness, that's never a good thing. So luckily it looks like no surgery is needed at all, especially not the surgery that you don't want.
So I do think. I mean, like I said, I'm kind of repeating myself, but I don't know if there's anything else to really say about this series. I mean, there's the Orioles. I mean, have they been playing well recently?
I haven't been paying too much attention to them. I mean, besides the 4-game sweep in the Bronx, I feel like I think they've been playing better than they started the year recently. But yeah, I mean, credit to them. Obviously, their pitching was great this series, specifically Kyle Bradish, like I mentioned earlier. But I think it's just the Yankees' offense just is in a rough stretch right now. But hopefully they get out of it. Hopefully they get out of it tonight.
So that will lead into their next series, and that can transition to our next part. Because with the Mets, it's a little bit of the opposite. When you consider how the season's been going for both these teams, and now going into the Subway Series, it's been a little bit of the opposite. At least with the Mets in their most recent series, as they had their first sweep of the season, and swept the Tigers. So, they, for one, I'd say the biggest positive that I feel like I've noticed, at least from the last 2 games, was that the Mets were down in both those games, and came back in both those games. I talked about a lot how this Mets team has been lifeless and they've had no life, but this was the first time in a while where they didn't really put their heads down and they were able to come back and produce 2 really solid wins, and not only produced 2 solid wins, but a walk-off and a blowout. They were down in the afternoon game 2-0 and ended up winning, scoring 8 runs on the day. And then in game 2, you had Carson Bench hitting a walk-off hit, which I guess the 2 major things to talk about, and the 2 things that really stood out in this series, was Carson Bench, who had a walk-off and a great series overall, and the debut of their prospect, AJ Ewing. So you know more about AAA and AA than me, Ryan, because you go watch the Somerset Patriots. But AJ Ewing has been a top prospect for the Mets that they finally, for one, first, before we even really get into him, it's good that the Mets are finally trying to do at least something, and not starting, guys off the street like Andy Ibanez, which they DFA'd to bring in AJ Ewing, and just players that aren't really doing anything for this team, kind of give this team some kind of boost, some kind of life. And AJ Ewing definitely did that. Um, he he had a triple. His first base hit in his career was a triple. He was the first Met to debut and be get on base, I believe, three separate times. He broke multiple records in his debut, and he's shown and has brought in a lot of positivity to this Mets clubhouse in just a short time. So it's interesting to see how he'll play out and how if he'll start to cool off a little bit. He will be in the lineup today against the Yankees, and he'll be playing center field. So it's good to see some life and potentially the outfield of Bench, Soto, and Ewing we could possibly potentially be seeing in the future.
Yeah, I was going to ask you. Of course, you'd bring up those names because it's like a youth movement right now with those two. It's cool to see the Mets finally have something go for them this year. So I was going to ask if you thought that those two were a big reason as to why, like you said, they didn't just put their head down in this series when they were down, and they came back and won those games. Um, but yeah, I mean, obviously, calling up a number one prospect can never hurt. If they're ready, they're in AAA, call them up. Um, so yeah, I think that's a smart move by the Mets, and yeah, hopefully we'll see what he does. Subway Series
Yeah,
now, it's a pretty
he
big
also got
spot for your second series.
mhm. He also got his first major league home run as well in that series against the Tigers. I would say this series showed more about the Mets than it did the Tigers because I think the Tigers are a little bit in a similar spot where they're not doing as well as expected. And they're figuring some things out. But it really showed that the Mets, potentially with Ewing, could really have some kind of spark, at least something to keep the fans watching. Even with constant issues and injuries, as we had the series with Alvarez getting hurt, and then Soto leaving the game, but then coming back the next game. So nothing too major, but overall, it was a really good series. It showed a lot of life. It showed a lot of fight that the Mets really haven't had all year. And I mean, I just hope they could bring this momentum into the next series, which we will get to because this next series is going to be the Subway Series. So next episode will not be covering two separate series. Obviously, it will just be one series, but we have definitely been waiting for this episode and series. Right, Ryan?
Yeah, definitely look forward to it. Wish we could be there. That would be pretty cool. We could do like a live post game reaction or something. That would have been cool. But maybe one day in the future we'll be lucky enough to have everything fall in place to do that. But yeah, definitely looking forward to that, to the Subway Series. This is the first, obviously. We all know 3 games at Citi Field, 3 games in the Bronx in September. But yeah, the pitching matchup tonight, Cam Schlittler versus Clay Holmes, 2 guys who have ERAs below 2. So that's pretty interesting to see what goes on there. I mean, I would predict a pitcher's duel. So the Yankees lineup, they loaded it up with lefties. Pretty sure there's only 2 righties in the whole lineup. So see what goes on there. But yeah, do you have anything in particular to look for tonight?
Yeah, I'm looking forward to the series just because of course the Subway Series.
Hmm.
Subway Series at Citi Field is probably one of my favorite regular season games to go to. Um I'm not sure if you have you been to a Subway Series game?
No, not a Major League Subway Series game, no.
So okay, so that's something. So I've been to a few Subway Series games. I went to I went at Yankee Stadium in 2022. I went to the 9/11 series when they played on September 10th, September 11th. So I've been to a few Subway Series games, and the atmosphere is always there. There's always at least at Citi Field, it's a good it's like I'd say 60-40 split of Mets and Yankees fans. So you get that playoff atmosphere, and it's great because it's two big fan bases, two diehard fan bases, colliding twice a year. So I mean, it's always gonna be a fun series.
Yeah, absolutely, and especially with the Mets, I feel like even when they're having a year like this, they still always show up in the Subway Series. It's always fun. It's always competitive. So I mean that's always
Yeah.
cool to look forward to.
Something to note: the Mets are 18-12 since 2018 against the Yankees at Citi Field. So the Mets have had the best of the Yankees series wise against the Yankees at Citi Field in recent time. I saw a stat the last time the Mets lineup, the Mets lineup looked like the last time they lost the series against the Yankees at Citi Field, and it was pretty bad. It was back in 2018 was the last time they lost the series to the Yankees at Citi
Yeah,
Field. So the Mets
pretty long time.
have had better success at Citi Field compared to Yankee Stadium when playing the Yankees, but they've also, I feel like, have had pretty good success playing the Yankees these last few years as well.
Yeah,
So I do think the Mets, while it hasn't been great throughout the whole year, I do think the Mets are starting to play a little better at the right time, and they should be competitive in this series. I'm not expecting the Mets to just get completely washed, but this also is the 2026 Mets, so we'll really see. I'm not too sure who the other two probable pitchers are starting. I'm kind of doing this we're kind of crunching this
yeah,
episode in. But I know Freddie Peralta will be starting in the series. I know Carlos Rodon, I think, will be pitching on
yeah.
Sunday.
The Yankees have Rodon tomorrow, I'm pretty sure, and Ron Weathers for the third
Yeah.
game.
Oh yeah, Bill Weathers against Peralta. I know
Yeah, I'm pretty sure the
Saturday is.
Mets haven't announced their starter for the second game yet.
Yeah, I know they haven't announced Saturday yet, so we'll
Hmm.
see. Um, I guess I mean when talking about the Subway Series, people always will talk about which stadium at least is better and has the better experience. I mean, from my personal experience, I personally think the Subway Series is better at Citi Field, more just for the fact that they do let more Yankee fans come in. It's more like, I'd say, like 70-30, while Citi Field is more like 60-40. You get that more like that kind of almost like a 50-50 split of both fan bases. It doesn't really feel like a Mets home game, I feel like, when it's a Subway Series game. And because it's a battle, it's battle for bragging rights. The tension and the atmosphere is there, and the Yankees and the Mets have played some pretty close games these last few years. Well,
Hmm.
really, I'd say they had that series in 2023. They played two like really really close games, and resulted in Brandon Nimmo hitting a walk off. We've had plenty of Zoom calls and video calls
Yeah,
during those games.
yeah. I remember one game in the past few years. Like Garrett Cole just came off the injured list. Like I'm pretty sure like his first start back, and he got absolutely rocked at Citi Field. That wasn't fun
Yeah,
to watch.
yeah. That was the year the Mets scored they hit like 10, 11 home runs against the Yankees. Like
Yeah,
in like the four games combined, like they hit like a ridiculous amount of home runs against the Yankees that year. They destroyed them in all four of those games. Well, actually, the only game that was close was when Jake Diekman. Do you remember when Jake Diekman he threw a pitch right down the middle and Aaron Judge took it and he
yeah, I
struck
remember
out.
that. Yeah, Judge struck out
Yeah.
looking. I mean, I think the same series Judge struck out Edwin Diaz to end the game. I think, if I'm not mistaken, I think that was at least the same year.
Yeah, that was the only game that was close. I know all the other games were blowouts that year, so I'm not sure if it was that year. But the Mets and Yankees have had very iconic Subway Series moments.
Hmm.
The one that always pops up to my mind is when my dad. This is a personal story. My dad was at a game where David Wright hit a walk off of Mariano Rivera in the bottom of the ninth. This was in 2006. So there's plenty of iconic moments. There's obviously the drop. Can't
Yeah,
go wrong with that.
I wasn't gonna bring
So
that one
there's
up, but it's been long enough. I think it's okay.
yeah, but yeah, Subway Series was always a great time. I could talk about it's always gonna be a fun time. Uh, the two New York teams. So I mean, with that being said, I mean I hope the series is good. I hope it's interesting. Obviously, I'm
Hmm.
hoping for the Mets to win the series. Seeing the momentum, the
Yeah,
Yankees looking to um try to get back on track.
yeah. I mean, for the Yankees, erase the fact that it's Yankees Mets. When you look at just the two records of these teams, I would expect the Yankees to go in there and sweep, but it's the Subway Series. The Mets are playing hot right now. The Yankees aren't really, so I could see anything happening. but realistically, I'm going to predict the Yankees take 2 of 3. What do you think?
Yeah, if you were to ask me like a week ago, I probably would have agreed with you. But I do think the Mets will show something. So I mean, I don't think they'll get swept. So uh, I think realistically they'll take at least a game. I could see them winning the series as well. But I think most likely the Yankees will probably take the series. But I hope to be wrong.
Yeah, it's at City Field, so historically, usually the Mets win those series. The Yankees win the ones in the Bronx, but we'll see what happens.
Yeah, we will see. We definitely do need to go to a Subway Series game one day. I mean,
We've been trying for years, but
we'll get to it. But
one day.
but yeah, I mean, I hope to just see more from the younger guys. I hope to see Vantos and Benj and Ewing kind of grow more and kind of get better. I mean, the only way, in my opinion, there's been a whole discussion about starting those guys like Beatty and a bunch of those younger guys, and like I said, the only way those guys are going to get better is if they play. You know, that you got to just
Mhm.
keep playing them. So just see how they rock and just go from there.
Yeah, another interesting thing I just kind of realized we should mention is I don't think the Yankees have faced Clay Holmes since he left the team. I could be wrong.
Yeah,
I don't think he started any of those games, so it's the first time they're going to face him, and also the first time they're going to face Luke Weaver and Devin Williams. Most likely
yeah,
they'll get in the game at some point, so that'll be interesting to see as well.
yeah. They haven't played against the greatest starter of all time, Clay Holmes. So
Mhm.
the Yankees will feel the wrath of Clay Holmes very soon.
Yep. Yeah, well, we'll see what happens tonight. Subway Series starts. Uh, Looking forward to it, obviously, and yeah, just hoping for a good series. Obviously, I mean, of course, I want the Yankees to win all 3 games, but for the sake of the podcast, I'd love to see just a fun series.
Yeah, of course. We'll definitely have more to say about the series. In the next episode, we'll definitely get more into it. Um, but I think that's all I really have to say about the series. The Mets are in an interesting spot. So then time's not. They don't. Their time hasn't gotten quicker. The time has gone slower in the sense that the Mets, are running out of time to turn things around. So I mean, there's any way to get things going, it's now if you're the Mets.
Yeah,
There's
yeah,
definitely a little more
definitely.
urgency.
Yeah, and like I mentioned earlier, I mean, the Mets always, every single person in the lineup seems like they always play up to their potential when it's against the Yankees. So we'll see.
We'll, we'll see.
All right, well, I think that wraps it up. Episode 9, Shadow of the Apple. Let's go Yankees.
All right, bro. See you in the next episode. Let's go Mets.
Yep.